I wanted to ask you a question. And the question is, why is gardening important to you? It's something to think about. What I mean to say is, an evaluational question like that will elicit your values and your beliefs. So when you ask yourself that question, why is my garden important to me? The answers that you come up with show you what your values are in gardening. And you'll see that they're also congruent with your values, your core values, all through your whole life, through everything. So you're going to garden the same way you do everything else in your life. It's your nature. It's the way that you do things according to your paradigm or your worldview, the way you see things. And that paradigm is made up of your values and your beliefs, your attitudes, the memories that you have, your identities. So let's go back to this question, why is gardening important to you? When you answer that question, you're going to become aware of your values and the beliefs that you have attached to those values. So for example, as a gardener, what's important to me is providing healthy, an abundance of nutritious food for my family to eat. That's primary. Number one is just to get the most nutritious possible food, because if you go to the store, the food is not nearly as nutritious as the food you can grow. That food is typically harvested early, before it's even really ripe, and often subjected to various processes in order to preserve that food as much as possible. Whether they do it with temperatures or chemicals. It's important to me, for example, to provide an abundance of nutritious food for my family. Now, I have not succeeded in doing that yet. My garden has not been that productive. I have definitely harvested a lot of food out here, but it's not like we're up to our knees in it, like we have too much of it. I think that every household should be in that state where there's an abundance of healthy, nutritious food everywhere, all around them. It's like, just keep eating it, just eat it, get rid of it, give it away. So that's important to me. It's also important for me to get away from the commercial food realm, that whole world of farmed food that is transported and delivered and sold to you at a retail price, and that's evil to me. That's not a healthy system. It's completely unnatural. So here's another reason why it's important to me, is to do things the natural way. This gives me an opportunity to do things personally in my life the natural way, and to be eating food that is grown in a natural way. So there you go. There's a lot of my values are being elicited right now. Number one is to provide. That's important to me. To be self-sufficient, in other words. So self-sufficiency is a huge value of mine. It goes along with independence. That's really important to me. So when I think about gardening, it's important to me that I can harvest a lot of food, an abundant amount of food to provide, because of my values of self-sufficiency and independence. And now also I said I want to get away from the commercially purchased food and get away from commercial food industry. So and to not be paying retail for a product that is inferior and sold through an unnatural system. So now it's eliciting values of my value of doing things naturally. And so it's important for things to be natural to me. And it's also important for them to be free. Why should I be paying $5 for a little thing of blueberries when that grows in abundance for free. That's not natural, you see, so it goes back to my values of nature. Doing things the natural way. And therefore, in nature, I find my self-sufficiency, my abundance, my freedom. So there you go. This is why gardening is important to me and how that applies to my values and the beliefs that I have about those things. So ask yourself those questions, because when you ask yourself that question and you know what's important to you, it's going to help you paint a picture of what your garden is going to look like. Is it going to consume your backyard and become a farm? A full-time, intensive farm? I mean, not full-time, but just, are you farming in your backyard? Are you trying to grow enough food to feed your whole family and to prevent yourself from going to the store? Are you homesteading? And what I'm saying. Homesteading to me is a concept that is so appealing because it serves all my values of independence, of freedom, of self-sufficiency, of having security in something real and tangible. Not something intangible like the number of hours that they give you at work that they promised you this week to pay you $10 an hour. That's sad. That's trading your life and trading what nature gave you. In a way, it's blasphemous. God gave us these lives to live, not to sell them away by the hour. You can see that I feel passionate about these particular values and beliefs that I have. Everyone feels passionate about the values and the beliefs that they have. That's the emotion that moves you and motivates you and causes you to take action and do things like build a garden. A lot of people look at me and they're like, geez, Vince, you put so much energy into your garden. I mean, you work yourself to get it set up. Once it's set up, it's not going to be a lot of work to maintain, but to set it up, yeah, I did put a lot of work into that. It didn't even faze me, though. Never thought about it. I'm not doing work, I'm doing something that's important to me. It feels good. If it's not important to you, you see it, you say, why the hell is that person doing that? It's different paradigms. So you have your own paradigm. Ask yourself that question, why is gardening important to me? And you're going to start to understand what's important to you in life. What are your values and what do you believe about those things? Like, I have a belief, one of my beliefs is, what if the food just disappears at the grocery store tomorrow? What if there's just no food? What if the prices just get jacked up and no one can afford food and then there's just a shortage of it? What the fuck are people going to do when they're living day to day and just going to the store every 3 days to get their food and there's not enough of it in our backyards to support us? So these are, now that may or may not ever happen. I don't know. But again, to live a natural lifestyle is to let the earth provide for you. And just work in cooperation with it. Don't fight against the earth or nature. Embrace it. Understand how it works. And then let that work for you. Just kind of let go and let your garden grow. Just set it up and let it go. And don't overdo things. Don't pull your weeds up by the root and throw it away in a green can and put it on the street, because then you're losing that weed in your garden, and nature wanted it to be there. It's putting a nice big root in the soil, and it's mulching. It's a living mulch that holds moisture in. And when you pull that, that weed is a part of your ecosystem. If you're gonna pull something up because it's in the way of food, now, like, I wouldn't let a weed grow over food that I'm growing. If a weed got into the canopy of a vegetable plant, I would chop that weed down below the point, below that point, maybe down by the ground, leave the root in the ground, and just take that weed and just drop it on the ground right next to my vegetable plant underneath it. And now it acts as a mulch. It's full of moisture and it's just going to dry out and decompose and create this layer of, almost like if you were to go and drop this like layer of something on the surface to hold the moisture in, like a strip of plastic or something like that, or a bit of mulch. That weed becomes mulch, and it's returning its nutrients that it took out from deep below with its deep taproot and brought up to the surface, and it's returning that right to the surface level where your vegetable plant is going to have access to it. That's natural. That's permaculture. That's why permaculture is important to me, because it's doing things the natural way. I don't want to be running in circles around my yard and watering my plants like I do. I do that now. I don't want to do that. I want to set it and forget it. So set it on a drip that harvests water from the rooftop, or it gets fed by the city, one or the other. A more permanent strategy would be ideal. What would be really permanent is if we could harvest the natural rainwater that falls around our property and direct it to slowly make its way from one side of the property to the other, not to rush it off into a gutter and a pipe and then out into a gutter where we're like, oh God, flood warning zone, we gotta be careful of floods and stuff. No, we do need flood control, absolutely. That's the purpose of a ditch in the first place. But we want to include those ditches on our properties to slow the water down and have it wrap through the property and soak into the subsoil as much as possible, so that when it rains a few times a year, it's actually filling up an underground water basin in your backyard. And through hugelkultur and different permaculture techniques, you can have your vegetable garden growing straight through the spring and summer season without ever having to water it. And if it's done right, you don't have to feed the plants either. It's done automatically the way nature would do it in a forest. So again, I just want to ask you guys this question: why is gardening important to me? And then just pull on that string and see where it takes you as you uncover what's important to you in your life and what you believe about those things and how you see them being put into action. Whatever you do, go out and start growing a garden today.